Welcome, Peter, to Raw and Cooked Vegan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I appreciate your patience through all that. Um, the way I usually start these, Peter, is simply to ask you, what was it like growing up for you? Was your family at all conscious about diet or nutrition?
I would say they were conscious about nutrition, but um, I come from a European background, so mum and dad, and I'm talking Eastern European, so meat is very much a central piece to a meal, so it's not really a meal without meat there. So, I mean, I never had takeaway and all that sort of bad stuff growing up. So it was all home cooked and all that. But in saying that, it was generally always meat and cheese and dairy with vegetables and fruit along mixed in. But I mean, so I guess, did I have a healthy upbringing? I think mum did the best she knew.
Yeah.
And, um, I wouldn't say I had a unhealthy upbringing, but it certainly wasn't like it is now.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Um, Now let me ask you just a technical question. Do you notice when you're watching this, is the screen flipping back between you and me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. All right. So at what point did you? And let me also ask, along with that, were you athletic as a child? Were you into sports at all?
Uh, I did play soccer as a child and did the usual school activities, but I didn't really excel. I wouldn't say I was gun ho about sports and whatnot. So, half and half. I also liked computers at the time, so that had me playing games indoors. So, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. All right. And at what age did you start to consider changing your diet?
So I guess for me, I had my first child, and previous to that, my lifestyle was terrible, really. I mean, I was into the dance music scene, which meant going out Fridays and Saturday nights, having um, long party sessions, which included drugs and alcohol,
Yeah.
and then just feeling it for the next week, and just feeling terrible, and then doing it again the following weekend. Um, so I started thinking about it when I had my first child. I was quite overweight at the time. I was carrying 25 kilos, which in pounds is about, I guess, double, 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that, I was 30, so I was considering the greater spectrum of life and where I was headed. And at the time, I was pretty, I wasn't fit, and I wasn't doing anything productive. So that's when I considered it.
All right. All
And
right.
by that, I don't really mean a dietary change. I just started to, you know, calorie restrict to lose weight. And looking back at it, that's how society thinks you should lose weight. You basically eat less, you do more, and you lose weight. And it does work, but it's not conducive to a very happy life, I found. You're
Yeah.
always hungry, basically.
I think that's a common experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so it sounds like your motivations were initially health, just simply health.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And was there a time where you kind of shifted towards? Did it become an idea? Hey, I'll try vegan to see if that works. Did you come across some things on the internet? Did you read a book?
I watched documentaries. Documentaries really got me. The first documentary I saw was um, Food Matters, and that was the first one to
Huh.
really open my mind that things aren't as rosy as you think they are in the supermarket, especially the meat shelf. And then I got quite inspired after watching that, and then I saw a related topic, a related movie was Forks Over Knives,
Yeah.
and so I watched that, and that was really the one that just did it for me. I turned vegan overnight after watching that.
Wow. All right. Now, was that transition at all difficult for you? Did you find you were missing animal products, or was it easy?
I did the transitionary vegan thing where I replaced every meat product with meat substitute. So at work, I would have flatbread wraps with salad and chicken previously, and I just used tofu and um, fake cheese, and so I wasn't really missing it at all. I wasn't
Yeah.
really, I, I mean, going to family events, that was a bit difficult because usually if it's Christmas or Easter or a birthday, there's usually a spit roast with an animal on it, and you have a bit of salad, and the main meal is meat. So I found that a bit tricky, and I remember my dad, because I started to lose weight even just by eating that way, and my dad just thought I was dying because he's used to me being chubbier, and he's like, you can't subside with just vegetables and fruit. And I was like, oh, I'll give it a go, Dad. See how we go.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's common, sadly.
Yeah.
But okay, so you start doing it, and you obviously start seeing some benefits. Did you did you go low fat initially as well?
So as I said, I just went as I was eating, but just had meat products substituted. So I wasn't really following high carb. I guess
Okay.
overall it would have been higher fat than I normally eat. Um, and so then I just, as you do, you search on Google and you search on YouTube, and then I started seeing this crazy guy, Durin Rider, eating all these bananas, and I was like, that's crazy. It really is crazy. I couldn't comprehend it at the time. To eat 10 bananas in one go, I, it just got. I just thought he was a crazy guy.
Yeah.
But then over time, I started seeing more and more of him, and he's quite convincing when he speaks. And I just
Yes.
thought I'll give it a go. I'll just I do a smoothie and I do 5 bananas and see how we go. And then I tried that, felt amazing, energetic and whatnot, and then started upping the bananas and upping the fruit during the day, and um, that's when I really felt a big difference changing my diet. I didn't really feel it so much before, but going high fruit and high carb is when I just felt amazing, and it's been 3 years now, so I'm
Wow.
not planning
Okay.
to go back.
When you initially did that, did you go all raw, or have you always had a little bit of cooked food in there?
Yeah, initially I'll be honest, and I was quite Nazi about my food. I started going all raw, and I'm a married guy who who changed overnight. So my wife loves to cook, and at the beginning, I was really just like, it's got to be raw. Raw is law, and she loves to cook at night as well, and it definitely caused tension in the house. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
And I started to get quite. I could see behaviors that weren't beneficial. I was concentrating too much on food and the quality of it and being organic and all this. And looking back at it now, I can see that I was stressing out about it a bit too much.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, a newbie mistake that most people get into. Um, but over time, that's obviously, it's just normal now to eat the way we do.
I love that you're saying that, Peter, because I think that does happen to a lot of people, and it's kind of like you're really excited. You've learned this. You know how valuable it is, and but it can be off-putting for some people when you
Yes.
are interacting with others.
Yeah,
Um,
I did the preachy vegan thing when you initially get into it, and I hated that I did it. But you feel so amazing, and you're just looking at other people who are sick, and you just want to help them. I mean, it's coming from a place of love,
right.
but it comes across as this know-it-all person, and that's the first bit of advice I give to people that are become new vegans: is don't preach. Just do what you're doing, excel at it, and people will ask you questions after that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And did your dad finally come to accept the fact that you were eating this way and that you were not going to die?
I think he's definitely accepted it, and now when he does a spit roast, he will do a big pot of vegetables all steamed and whatnot. And I mean, obviously after time, people initially think it's a phase, and I guess that's normal with family. They just think you're a bit of a crazy lunatic that's doing this diet for like a month or two. But three
Yeah.
years later, people realize that, hey, this is not going to disappear. This
Okay.
is
I kind of lost you there a little bit, but tell me a little bit about what happened with your wife. Did she eventually join you in eating this way, or what's her take on it?
you there?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
Good.
We had a disconnect there. So my
Okay.
question was, what eventually happened with your wife? Is she eating the way you are now, or does
Yeah.
uh, so she recognizes the value of it?
Look, she's one of those people that, and there's many people in life, and she's one of those people that transitions slowly. So I did it overnight, and I just changed habits, and that's just my personality. But for her, she just did it bit by bit, and I mean, my boys, I got two boys, Philip and Osran, and 7 and 4 year olds, and 90% of, I'd say 95% of the food they eat is plant based.
Peter, Peter, sorry about that. So you're
Let's drop
saying,
that again, yeah. Yep.
yeah, hopefully that won't ruin the whole thing. But so you were just you said your boys are eating like 95%
Yeah.
like the.
I don't. I don't. I've seen advice from other plant strong parents, and the general message is you shouldn't. If your child is at a birthday and there's a birthday cake, you shouldn't be imposing your values on them. And if they have a slice, that's fine. And that's the sort of ethos I go for. Is if they're at school and there's some school activity and there's lollies that have pig trotters in them or something like that. I'm not one to try make it seem like a prison to them.
Great,
I want
great.
food. I want food for them to be a positive thing that they're excited about, and they don't feel like there's this cage of food that they can't eat. So that's why I say they're about 90, 95% plant strong. The rest of food is some stuff that sneaks in with grandparents or when we're traveling. So,
I
but
love that, Peter. That's very practical, and I think that's really healthy for the kids.
yeah.
Um, obviously, you've mentioned some of the benefits you saw. You obviously lost weight. What are some of the other things you've noticed as time has progressed on in this lifestyle?
I think the main one is energy levels. I used to be addicted to coffee, and I wasn't addicted to coffee per se. I mean, I was physiologically, but I was addicted to. I was using it as a means of getting energy. I was a young parent at the time who, as young parents, you don't sleep too much, and I had to work, and I was using it as a way of just, being able to function. So,
Yeah.
um, so in the end, I was drinking 8 cups of coffee a day, and that was kind of like to keep me at a baseline level where I was functioning. And without coffee, I just couldn't do it. And so when I went plant-based, I started to drink less coffee, and I didn't intend to do that. It just, I didn't really feel like drinking it. And then in the end, I had to make the decision to actually stop and just give it up because I knew, reading up about adrenal fatigue and all that sort of stuff, I knew that it wasn't health promoting, and I was doing this to promote health in myself. So I gave it up, and I had a terrible detox from it and withdrawal symptoms, headache that lasted 10 days. But after that, I noticed my energy, my natural energy bounced back. And so that's one of the real benefits that I find. If you're not addicted to coffee, you'll notice it quicker than I did. But I mean, I just remember after a month of giving it up, I didn't ever need coffee anymore. I had all the energy I wanted, and it was real energy. It wasn't artificial energy that you pay back later.
You know,
So
that's interesting. And you had a headache for 10 days.
yes, yeah,
What a nightmare.
it's one of those withdrawal headaches, and the first couple of days was terrible, and it just kept lingering and lingering because I was actually very involved with the coffee scene in the city we live in. I was looked upon as some kind of expert, and so I was still getting those calls, having given the coffee up, and I had to make
Yeah.
the decision to say, look, I'm no longer this expert that you guys think I am because I'm not drinking it at all.
The coffee guru. Yeah,
Yes.
man.
Yeah. So
All right.
energy levels is one, but I think the other one that's probably more uh, beneficial to life, I think, is mental clarity. To be able to just think about things and uh, some of the things I used to think about, like back when I was eating a lot of meat and dairy, I feel like I was using them to numb myself to some degree. And now having a clean diet, you can really just think about things a bit differently and outside of the box.
That's a great point, Peter. I know a lot of us suppress life with drug use and probably unconsciously do it with food. That's really interesting. What's your take? I know that you used to party a lot in the music scene. Do you drink anymore? Like, do you have an occasional glass of wine, or are you totally off the alcohol?
I would say that I wouldn't say I never drink, but it's a very rare occasion. And when I do, it's kind of like a toast at the wedding, or it's I'm not doing
Yeah.
it for my personal pleasure because I I mean I feel like I can when I do have a glass of wine, I feel like I can just notice the negative effects from it. The cloudiness of thought and like feeling dehydrated and all that stuff. So for me, it's not pleasurable, and I don't ever seek it out.
Yeah.
But in a social situation, sometimes I'll definitely have a drink and I'll call it quits after one. Then I'll
Yeah.
drink a lot of water to make up for it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I wonder if you could elaborate some. What have you learned along the way in terms of ethics? So it sounds like that was a big part of your kind of the dawning of recognition for you. What are some of the things you've learned about the animal production industry that you think are unethical?
Well, I guess being ignorant and not really thinking about how these animals are kept, and then seeing it on a documentary, and it's terrible. It's a living hell for these animals, and like I said to you, I changed for health reasons, but the more I'm on this path, the more I realize that ethics is a major part now. And being from a European family, I was involved with slaughtering the animals Dad would come back from the farm from, and it's a terrible thing to do, and it's not natural. And even at the time, I was eating the meat, and I could see the benefit, so-called benefit of the animal dying, but I never liked doing it. And I mean, I'm pretty convinced if most people had to slaughter their own animals, they wouldn't be eating meat because,
Yeah.
looking at an animal's eyes and basically killing it is a horrible thing to do.
So did your family own a farm?
They didn't, but being Europeans, they always like to save money, and they knew they could go to a farm, buy a pig or a sheep alive, and take it back to our backyard and slaughter it. I think that's actually illegal in Australia, but it didn't. Dad was saving money, and that's how he looked at it. But it certainly opened my eyes doing that sort of stuff, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a pretty
You
sight.
know, I think one of the hard things about that is it can be so deeply ingrained in like a family culture and history. If a person is taught that when they're a child, they just think it's normal. They might even have fond memories of their parents teaching them how to do these kind of things. So it can make it tough.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, in European culture, especially Eastern European, there's the prosciutto and all that sort of stuff, and it's considered like an art form and all that. But like you say, it's shrouded in a lot of historical sort of like I mean, the poor animal had to die for that bit of meat to happen, and you don't really think about it too much like that.
Right, right. Um, all right, and how about on the environmental side? What are some of the things you've learned along the way in terms of the negative environmental effects of an animal-based diet?
Uh, I mean, that's the thing with eating a plant-based diet is there's no negatives. It's positives for the animals, it's positives for your health, and positives for the environment. So it's all win-win. And watching stuff, the documentary Cowspiracy, that really just highlights how bad animal production is for the world. I mean, um, I can't think of any negatives of going plant-based.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Can you tell us? It sounds like you have very nicely managed to live this way. Like you said in the beginning, you were maybe perhaps a little bit Nazi-like with your vegan knowledge, but it sounds like you have now become more relaxed with it, and you're able to participate with others. You still attend family functions. It's not like you're going to disassociate yourself from your family because they're not vegan. Tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about that, about moving in society in a positive way, being an example without being oppressive about it.
right. Um, so I guess initially you stress out about going to a restaurant, and I remember, um, going to a restaurant, having a date to go to a restaurant with a group of friends, and looking at the menu and deciding what you can eat and what you can't eat, and stressing out because I couldn't see much that I could eat. And when I think about how I am now, I mean, we're traveling as a family. We're traveling through Europe at the moment, and that's a year long holiday that we're doing. And we go to
Wow.
restaurants here all the time that, like last week we were in Bulgaria and there's no English on the menu. And I'm still managing to find great plant-based foods that are tasty, and you have to explain them with words. Sometimes you can't speak the language and all that. And but I've found that in most cultures around where we've travelled anyway have a word for vegan, or at least I know in Serbia at the moment they've got a word that means fasting food, which means it's plant-based. There's no animal products, and so you can point to that and say, look, this is what I would like, and they bring out usually stuff that's quite a bit salty for me because I'm not used to too much salt. But
Huh.
on the occasion, that's the worst of it. A bit of salt and a bit of oil, I can live with that. So in terms of friends and all that, people know that I love fruit now. So what I like about it is that at a birthday party or whatnot, they'll just cut up half a watermelon for me and just present it on a platter and say, this is yours, go for it. And usually you find that other guests want some watermelon as well because fruit tastes great.
That's good. I like that. Um, I should have asked you this earlier, but I'm curious. Since your wife has joined this with you, has she noticed some health benefits from it?
She's lost weight as well.
Yeah.
She's definitely lost weight. I mean, I noticed that she when I was drinking coffee, obviously she would be drinking coffee as well because we had a fancy machine at home, and I ended up selling that. And we don't do coffee so. Well, I mean, I don't do coffee at all, but she doesn't do coffee much at all. So, um, but it's good. I mean, I really like having the family in a like we have our family dinners, and it's kind of like plant strong and high carb, and you know and then you hear about the other kids at school, what they're sort of having, and I can see a lot of the times what they're having for food, and you know, it's their journey, and this is our journey, so no one's right and wrong, but I do feel sorry for some of the kids who are a bit overweight, and you can see the trajectory is that they're only going to get bigger. So
It's cool that your wife's into cooking. Has she found a way to express herself in the high carb plant-based way? Has she been enjoying that?
yes, I think it's a challenge initially because you use eggs to bind stuff, but I mean she's got very creative with the cooking, and we sort of have like probably about 10 dishes, probably not even 10 dishes, about 5 to 7 dishes that we all love as a family. We just rotate from, for dinner,
Yep.
and the boys love them and all that sort of stuff, making our own pizzas and pasta and whatnot. And what I like doing is when people come over to our house for dinner, I like to present them like, obviously what we eat. I don't like to change my way of eating just because I have people over. But I never say it's vegan to them. I never say it's plant-based. We just present the dinner as we would normally. And by the end of it, sometimes they don't even notice there's no meat. You know what I mean? They just enjoy
I
the
like
dinner.
that. That's
Normally,
really cool.
it's tasty. We make it a bit saltier than we normally would, just because we know that salt threshold with other people is quite high.
Yeah.
And we don't make it a big point like, oh, we're going to serve you vegan, like as if it's a real foreign concept. So just keep it on the down low and let them enjoy their food.
That's really great, Peter. I love that. You mentioned that your boys will pretty much eat like you do, and then if they're out in a public situation, they might have something else. Have you noticed that when they do that, they get some ill effects from foods that they eat?
I have, if they're having ice cream, because they don't have obviously lactose at all, and I noticed that if you have a big-ish ice cream, that's quite a lot of lactose for someone who doesn't have it. And Philip, who's quite sensitive, who's got a sensitive stomach, he has vomited before from having it. And I mean, it's really easy for me to sort of go, okay, well, that's because there's lactose, and really easy to sort of plant the seed. But I don't try to be too much of an arsehole with that sort of stuff. I just say, look, your stomach's not used to that kind of food, and you're used to better food than that. Leave it at that.
All right. Now, I'd like to ask you about your video work, because you do a really nice job with your videos. Did that come easily to you? I get the impression that you have a computer background. So are you very comfortable working with the computer?
So I've always, from an early age, been into computers, and as my career, I'm a website designer. So I've always delved with digital photography, video, and design. But video production to me is a new thing. So I've only had the channel really. I've only started to do video since the channel started. But knowing how Photoshop works, it sort of kind of transcends to video as well.
Okay.
But I'm really enjoying it, and because we're away and holidaying, I'm giving it more time than I can when I'm back home. So.
Well, I love it, and I know your viewers won't need to hear this, but just for if we get some other viewers outside, can you say the name of your channel, and the name of any channels you have and any websites you have?
Right. So the channel, I mean, it's the channel really that I want to promote, which is Plant-Based Guerilla. And I guess the channel is a plant-strong channel that, looks at my lifestyle and talks about issues and debates about in the plant-strong world, really.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So, there is an area I'd like to hear your take on. What are the conclusions you've reached regarding supplementation?
So initially, I was, and it's kind of like I think it's a general newbie mistake. You read all these blog items or news stories how vegans are deficient with X, Y, and Z. And I remember initially I was so scared about omega-3 and all that. I was taking, so I was plant-based, but I was taking fish oil, and I just thought, this doesn't make sense. This is really quite silly. And researched into it more, and then in the end, I mean, the only supplement I take is B12.
Okay.
I don't take anything else. And I've had blood tests, and the blood tests come back completely fine. Providing a person eats a varied diet with lots of colorful fruits and vegetables, generally, if you're eating enough calories, you should be okay. I mean, there's only a few things you have to take notice with, like a Brazil nut for selenium and that sort of stuff. But it's just become second nature now, just to not worry about it too much. But I still like to get tested every once in a while just to make sure.
Yeah. I would imagine that in Australia, vitamin D is not so much of an issue.
No, I mean, and when I'm in Australia, I'm always, I bike to work and I bike back, and plus I do running as as a sport, and don't have to worry about it. I mean,
Beautiful.
I'm here in European winter. It's at tail end of the winter, and you still get enough sun. Providing you show a bit of skin to the sun, you should be okay.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, Peter. Is there any what I do like to hear? Let's say you were speaking to someone who was considering this lifestyle for the first time. Would there be some general tips? I know you mentioned earlier. Um, don't be what's the right word? Too aggressive about what you've learned. But are there any other general tips you'd give someone who's just transitioning to this? There, I got you back now.
Okay.
Are there any other tips you'd give someone who's just starting for the first time?
So I guess the main tip, and I've coached a few people into converting to veganism. So the main tip I give them is track your calories initially, because most of the time you don't eat enough, and that's one that makes people fall off the wagon, because they feel hungry and they just end up binging on foods they shouldn't be eating. So, but if people are too lazy to track their calories, I just say eat enough to feel really quite full. And as you know, eating plant foods, you need to eat a bigger quantity. That's just the way it is. And so number one mistake people make is not eating enough.
Great. On that note, you know, there are some who advocate really high caloric intake. Do you think that's necessary, or do you think there's perhaps a variety depending on people's activity level and maybe size, metabolism?
Yeah. Initially, I think initially, even for people who are not active, I think it's always good to overeat initially, just for the first month or two, just so you can
Okay.
start your your brain to be working clearer and all that. And then as you go on, I totally get what you're getting at, and I think people should eat to feel, where they shouldn't be aiming for a particular number, but they should eat enough bananas to where they feel comfortable to stop. I don't recommend people smashing massive calories, because I've seen the negative effects of that, and people get quite big on this lifestyle by doing that. So I never recommend calorie restriction. I think people should just eat until they feel comfortable.
Okay. Beautiful. Um, and it seems that for you, I think I saw that you kind of do a raw till four thing. So would you say that for you, you experience the same level of health, whether it's a 10 bananas or say rice with vegetables? You consider those all acceptable foods?
Totally acceptable. I mean, I mean, I like the way I feel after fruit more than a cooked meal. Like a massive cooked meal or a massive fruit meal, fruit makes me leaves me feeling more energetic afterwards. Whereas
Mhm.
with cooked food, I feel like I can overeat quite easily. So, but in saying that, it's a very negligible difference. And if someone's considering going raw to four or raw, I think as long as you're eating enough calories, you should be okay either way.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. And then briefly, tell us a little bit about your athletic life, because it sounds like you're pretty active. Do you go on race? You get in races, that sort of thing?
So initially, I was never an active person. After school and all that finished, I was basically just a regular guy that was sedentary, worked at long hours at the desk and didn't do much, and had all kinds of issues. Like I had a dodgy knee, I had a bad back, and all that sort of stuff. And then as I changed my diet, I started to have this energy where, for some reason, I just wanted to run and bike to work and all that sort of stuff. And um, in the end, um, just started doing that more regularly, and all of a sudden, like I'm using my joints more, my back more, my back pain and my knee pain went away. And
Huh.
is that diet? Is that coincidence? Or I'm not sure. But I'm actually running the marathon here in Serbia in about a month's time, and I've never run a marathon. I had no dreams of ever doing something like that, and for me to be even considering that, if I had told myself that 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I would just thought that was crazy. Um, so I run 3 or 4 times a week. When I'm back in Australia, I also ride. On top of that, it's too dangerous to ride here. It's just crazy roads, but um, yeah, so I mean, in terms of positive example, my boys can see that, oh, Dad's runs a lot. He's quite fast and da da da. So I think that's the way to sort of get your kids into eating that way, is just to show them that eating foods like a high carb vegan diet can actually promote you to be fast and lean and all those sort of positive things.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm a little bit curious. You're in Serbia. Are you guys? Is it very much in the news what's happening in Ukraine? Is that popping up a lot?
Yeah, that's in the news here quite a bit. I mean, I follow Australian news as well. Australians don't seem to know what's going on there at all, but I mean, here it's obviously very, very topical.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I appreciate your time. We've covered a lot. It's a real pleasure. Anything you want to throw in at the end here? Okay, okay.